NBA Front Office Show. The latest NBA news coming your way. Make sure you are subscribing to the show on YouTube. Don't forget to turn on those notifications as well and like this video. Podcast listeners following over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to podcasts. If you give us that rating and review, we'd appreciate it. I'm Trevor Lane, joined by Keith Smith. Keith, we got plenty of news to dive into today. We're fully into preseason mode. Basketball is here. Let's go. I love this time of year. This is just a great time of year in general. Halloween decorations are going up. We've got football. We've got playoff baseball. We've got all kinds of great stuff going on right now.
Yeah, 2 weeks from today is like opening night in full when like everybody gets going except for two teams, I believe. They are delayed until a Thursday start. But yeah, man, it's awesome. It was really cool. It's always fun when you turn on, like I tend to turn on NBA Game Time in the morning just to catch highlights of games I didn't watch. And it's fun now because it's full of games. Like there were so many games last night. There's a bunch of stuff. Hey, I'm gonna break though and do just momentary non-basketball because I'm super excited. Look at this.
Oh, what is that?
So this is a book all about kind of how the MCU came to be. It's by Joanna Robinson, Dave Gonzalez, and Gavin Edwards. Joanna Robinson hosts The House of R and used to be part of Ringerverse and does some writing for The Ringer. And yeah, they wrote this big book about like the whole history of everything. And like, there's stuff in there about like casting decisions that were changed and things like that. So I'm super excited to dive in.
Oh, all right, cool. I may have to I may need to wait until like August it comes around again to get to that. But yeah, that does sound like
I have a
really
trip
cool
coming up out to Phoenix.
Right. You need something to read on the plane.
Yeah, I'm trying to save it to read it on the plane. I don't know if I'll make it though. This might be a like read a chapter a night before bed kind of thing. That I end up getting into before then. So we'll kind of see.
Too excited to dive in. Too excited to dive in.
Too excited to sleep.
Plenty of NBA news for us to get into today, but let's start with this. Just came out before we hit record. Kai Jones has been waived by the Charlotte Hornets, and we talked about him earlier this week. The fact that he had been posting some concerning things on social media, that he did post that he was requesting a trade. The Hornets, he has $3 million under contract for this year. It does have a team option for next year for I want to say $7 million was the number. Obviously, the Hornets not picking that up. They're going to just part ways with him. They'll eat the $3 million in salary for this season. I know, Keith, you posted on X and said that, teams just can't help themselves. Something to the effect of teams just keep picking these guys up. And fans asked too, could this guy help our team?
Yeah, that was what I put out there was, fans are. And then John Hollinger of The Athletic replied with whispers and coaches too.
Right. I don't see anyone picking him up. I don't see it. Like there's something bigger is going on here. And I've had people that were in my mentions like suggesting what may be going on. I'm certainly not qualified to speculate, but so there's other stuff that has to be figured out before I think we're going to see him on a basketball court.
Yeah, to my extremely untrained eye, I would say something's not right. Just the behavior is off. Like, I don't know any other way to describe it, but we've talked about it on the show before. But for those who aren't up to speed, he a month or so ago, maybe 2 months ago, spent a lot of time on social media, kind of pumping himself up, which is fine, right? No problem with that. But then he started trashing teammates, and it got very specific to called guys out by name and things they can't do on the basketball court that he believes he can do and things like that. And then from there, things just got even more erratic with his behavior across a bunch of different forms of social media. The Hornets shortly thereafter announced he wouldn't be with them to start training camp. And then he came out just a couple of days ago and said he's requested a trade. Well, clearly there was no trade interest. $3 million, that's something anybody could have traded for with very little issue, and no one did. So that says to me, teams are saying, okay, let's get you figured out first and go. My hope is this doesn't spiral into something worse now that he's
Yeah.
completely kind of outside of the team construct. But yeah, no, not a good thing. And then if we keep it just basketball wise for the Hornets, that draft is now really messy for them. They drafted Kai Jones and James Bouknight in that draft. Neither guy has shown much to this point in the league. And now Bouknight, it just came out a couple days ago that he was going to have surgery. And today the team confirmed that he had surgery and would be reevaluated in 4 weeks. So obviously he's out to start the year, and that's a knee surgery that he had. So not good returns from Charlotte on that draft, to be sure.
Not good at all. And frankly, the public perception right now isn't great on what Charlotte did in this year's draft either. A lot of people saying they should have taken Scoot. We'll find out.
And then you had the Miles Bridges situation on top of it. Just, things are pretty questionable there in Charlotte. They've got some work to do to get things turned around. And it's funny because, right, I know you listen to a lot of the same NBA podcasts I do when we're not consuming front office show and other company
listening
pods.
To ourselves. Yes,
exactly. Yeah. Which, to be honest, I don't know that I've ever listened to our show back. Because I already kind of know what I said. So
I've listened to parts of it while I'm editing it because I have to, because I'm editing it. You know what I mean?
You're doing more work than I am. After I shut off the mic and then go babble on Twitter for hours on it. But I think a lot of people in these pods have been talking about, hey, are people sleeping on the Hornets a little bit? Because this was a play-in team just 2 seasons ago. Everything that could have possibly gone wrong went wrong for them last year. And people are, there's still an awful lot of talent on this team. But to me, it just feels like one of those situations where everything just seems really kind of not great. And they may need some form of, cleanse, reset, whatever we need to call it, to just get the vibes back on track, because it's not good right now in Charlotte.
Yeah, that's just it. It's not good right now in Charlotte, unless you're Michael Jordan, who is counting his billions. But yes,
3 billion they said his net worth is now, or something like that. So good for him. It's funny. I was asked today, just semi-related, and we're going to get into this topic more later. But somebody said, is it realistic that LeBron is going to own an expansion team? And I said, by himself? No. Like he's
not by himself.
Nobody. He'll be a part of a group like that. That's where that is at. And I said, but you got to think like there's literally one of one has owned a team, and it was Michael Jordan. Like that's it. And and I'm not gonna get into the whole who's the greatest of all time between MJ and LeBron, because that's a discussion that can be had much later. But I think it is. People don't realize, like, as rich as some of these guys are, and don't get me wrong, they are, unfathomably rich. There's like whole other levels to that doesn't even begin to touch. Like, I always think about that with Steve Ballmer, where Steve Ballmer could buy like 5 other teams if he wanted to before he'd even feel it. And it's like that's, a whole other different level. So it's funny, MJ is as much as he's MJ, like he is a worldwide global brand because of what he was then. And like there's kids now I know that wear Jordans. They have no idea who Michael Jordan is. They just know Jordan the brand. Which is also tells me I should probably
scary.
Yeah, I should probably finish digging the grave and just hop on in at this point. But it's it's like it is scary, but that's to the power of why he is a guy who's worth $3 billion.
Well, speaking of LeBron and owning a team, expansion, it's on the way. It sounds like it's going to be. There's going to be a lot of people interested, but LeBron versus Shaq for ownership on a team in Las Vegas. Adrian Wojnarowski confirming that yes, expansion is coming after the NBA figures out their media rights deals. Once they get that done, then expansion is next up. That's on deck. It's coming. Las Vegas and Seattle, still the 2 most likely spots. Of course, we're going to hear other cities that are going to get involved. We're going to hear other names, but 2 teams will be coming, and sounds like it's going to, like, Seattle and Las Vegas are the heavy betting favorite for which 2 cities are going to get NBA teams.
Yeah, the NBA has been very clear they want to get back into Seattle. They as much as they may have facilitated what happened there, they didn't necessarily like it the way it played out. So I think that's a lock. And then Las Vegas, I mean, if you're a longtime listener to the show, one, we've been saying this for basically the life of this show, that like expansion is coming at some point. And then you finally had Adam Silver a little bit over the pandemic kind of said, yeah, maybe we'll start looking at some of the old expansion work and dusting it off. And then coming out of the pandemic, it was very clear CBA, media rights deal, then we're going to get into it. I'm going to say within a year from now, we are beginning the process of expansion. And that doesn't mean we're naming two teams and they're going to start, in the 24-25 season, nothing like that. It's because it's going to be probably a 2 or 3 year process there. But with the Las Vegas group, whoever ends up owning the team, they're going to end up working with the group that's already building an arena, because I don't know how many people realize they're building a brand new arena because they're not going to share an arena with the hockey team. They're not going to play where the Aces play. They're not going to play in any one of the other, 10 places that you could be played there in Las Vegas, because they just build these things because they build them. But they're going to build, it's already underway that they're building an arena. And the idea is to build the arena for, an NBA team. So it's coming, and I would say it's those two cities. My big wonder is that where it stops? Do they say, you know what, we're the last team to the party kind of to expand, but are we going to be the first to go to more than 32? Are we going to make the jump into another market or two where we could kind of really own it? Maybe, before the NHL gets there, maybe before any of the other big sports get there. I do kind of,
they're going to be last into Vegas.
Yeah. Last into Vegas, last into Seattle now too, so you don't want to be last in a market, and it'll be interesting. Maybe they could beat the A's there as far as, permanent full-time, placement. Maybe it'll be close. Probably not. The A's should get there first, but it's coming for sure.
All right, let's talk a little bit about this. I thought this was interesting. Now, this is not fully fleshed out, but The Athletic put out an article. Joe Varden put this out. The NBA is now saying they've got data that shows that load management does not work. Now, I instantly went, yeah, I need to see this data, because that flies in the face of what we've been told for years now about the human body, how we respond to fatigue and all of that stuff. And in addition to just logic, right? Logically, if you're moving differently because your muscles are fatigued and you're sore, you've been traveling, you're on a back-to-back, it seems to reason that you would be at a higher probability to suffer an injury. That's just my own logic. Again, I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but the NBA also has a lot of reason to say load management does not work, right? Or to hope anyway, that load management does not work and that it's something that falls by the wayside and doesn't exist again, particularly when you're negotiating TV deals. So there's some motive here for the NBA to be on the side of, it really doesn't work. See, look at this data. But you never know. So that's why I'm curious to actually see what does this new data say? What does this look like? And interesting that this is coming out on the heels of the NBA's anti-resting policies that we've seen from this summer.
Yeah, and Adam Silver, when he was asked about it, was asked, what is the deal with this player participation policy? And he said, in that press conference said, we have some data that shows the load management isn't doing what teams think it is. It's not preventing injuries the way they want it to prevent. Guys aren't getting there healthier than they want to be. Now, though, what you've had is Joe Dumars and I believe Evan Wash is the other one in the league office, basically coming out and saying, yeah, we have all this data that backs that. Like, it really doesn't work. Now, here's my thing. Didn't show it to us. Be forthcoming. Like, show us what you believe is here. Few other random thoughts on this. The vast majority of players they don't want to be load managed. Like they want to play. This is a team related decision. So this is really kind of, in an odd way, this is almost the league and the players against the teams here in a sense, where a lot of players, it's because every time this comes up, you get all these people, well, back in my day,
And
these
and
guys,
it turns into the players are lazy. That's the
yeah, they're
public
lazy, they're
narrative,
weak, they're
and that's
soft.
not the
Yeah.
what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not it, right? They most of them do want to play. Even Kawhi Leonard, who has kind of become the poster child for all of this, because that's where the term was brought up with regularity, was with him. Even he has said openly, as did the Toronto Raptors, when they very famously said, hey, we're load managing him. And guess what? For them, it did work. They won a title. But when they said they were doing it, it was because he has a chronic condition. His leg thing that he has going on with the quad, it's one of those things, even when he's back with the Spurs, who aren't exactly super forthcoming about this stuff, said this is something that will have to be managed for the remainder of his career. Like it's just going to be a thing. It's a condition. It's not an injury that he needs to get over or rehab. It is a condition. And then the Raptors got him to where they got him to. And then obviously the Clippers have taken great pains to try to make sure him and Paul George, and now on the NBA side, sure they're coming back and kind of saying, you did all that and then they were both hurt anyway. Like where did this get us? So I think what we're seeing now is kind of all these things are coming together. You're 100% right. Fans complain, they turn on a national TV game and guys aren't playing. Right, they're not happy, as they should be, which then turns the national TV partners basically saying, "What the heck did we pay for?" Right, we gave you billions of dollars to watch, no offense, but Bones Highland take 25 shots tonight.
Right.
Like, what is this? We didn't really want to watch, the team play through Ivica Zubac in the post. Like, where are the stars? Let's go. And I'm just using the Clippers because we're already talking about that. But it's every team does some levels of this. So I fully get where this is coming from. And I think one of the things the NBA is probably going to start reminding teams to some extent is, hey, half the money goes to you as the team, half goes to the players. If you want, I'm very fond of saying, if you want half of that watermelon instead of half of an orange or half of a grape, like, let's go. I would rather have half a watermelon than a whole grape. Like, that's just the way it works. And I think what they're trying to tell them is, like, we may be at a crucial part where the TV partners may say, that 10 billion you thought you might get for these media rights deals spread out across multiple companies, it might be more like 7 or 8 if we don't feel like what we're paying for is going to be guys getting there. They'll pay for the playoffs because guys play then, but they're not going to pay for, hey, give me a whole bunch of regular season games in October, November, and December when a bunch of guys may be sitting out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to drag down ratings, of course. And that's a problem for TV partners. So
then everyone loses money.
Right.
Yeah.
So the NBA in general, the entity, everybody has incentive for players to be out there and playing. Again, though, the goal is to win a championship, right? That's the standard we hold players to. If a guy is a star level player, if he wins an MVP and he never wins a championship, he has to hear for the rest of your life, but you didn't do this, right? That will always be there. Talk about Charles Barkley was great, but right. So whatever the path to that is, that's what players are gonna do, and that's what teams are gonna do. If the NBA can prove that this doesn't help you get there, as it did with Kawhi and the Raptors, maybe load management does fall by the wayside. But again, I want to see this data and see exactly what it says and how this all fits in. Again, we've talked about this before too. The NBA has a very simple solution to load management. They could fix it if they wanted to in an instant. Just chop off 10 games, and then no more back-to-backs, and there's no reason to rest players. But nobody wants that because that means less revenue, and that means again less money for everybody involved.
I do wonder if we expand by 2 teams, which would be 82 more games coming into the league. I know people will be like, how did you get to that, man? It's not because they do play other teams. So you can't just throw on, 82 and 82. It's actually only 82. Do you get to a point where if we, can we start to scale back everybody else? If you cut 5 games off of everybody else, you add that 82. What if you did go to 4 teams? It was 164 and you cut 5 games off the other 30. Now we're coming out ahead. Could we get to a place where we do see, a handful less games as we bring in. I think it's highly doubtful because I think at the end of the day, what's going to happen is the teams are going to come back and say, all right, you cut, like you said, if you cut 10 games, if you cut away 5 of our home games, this is what the loss is. And then they're going to show that to the players, and the players are going to be like, nope, like
Yeah.
I don't want to lose that. I get half that money that's lost there too. So no, I don't want to cut back. But I think you're right. I do think they would be, very well served by, cutting a handful of games off. And the thing is, you could still meet all your TV requirements without a doubt. It just games would be spread across, more often. I think you could even get to a place too, which I know this sucks for like the Orlandos and the Oklahoma Cities and Charlottes of the world. But maybe if you're playing, more spread out, you can get your main teams on TV more often because it's, becomes a bigger percentage of their games that are on. With that, there's all kinds of rules around how often teams can be on national TV, and then that starts the whole argument: is NBA TV national TV? Because when it looks good, they say it is. But I think we're all kind of like, kind of, sort of is.
Sort of counts.
And then we all get. I don't know about you, but I get super aggravated because then it's like, oh, it's an NBA TV game, and I'm not guaranteed to have the commentators I want.
Oh yeah, that's the worst.
Right.
That is
then
the
it's
worst.
like, oh man, like, and it invariably too, it's some, and I'm not going to call anybody out, but it's some broadcast team that I just don't enjoy. And it's like, oh, well, now I'm kind of stuck with them. So, but yeah, man, this is going to be a whole thing. The new player participation policy. I expect at some point some team's going to say, you know what, we're just going to take the fine because this is a third game in 4 nights on a back-to-back, and we'll pay the fine because the fine hits the team, not the players. So it's going to be very, very interesting to watch how this all works over the next really course of this season, because this is going to be a lot of what I think the NBA is going to be pitching to TV partners of, see, player participation is up and ratings are up and X, Y, and Z.
Absolutely. So something certainly to keep an eye on. Klay Thompson said can't see himself going anywhere else. Yeah, he'll have some contract situations to work out. Maybe he even does a little hometown discount or something. But I loved, and this is an interview with Anthony Slater of The Athletic. He talked about how rare it is for a player to spend their whole career with one team. And he mentioned, he said, not even just in the NBA, but across a bunch of different sports. I think he even named like Australian rules football and stuff.
Yeah, he did.
And I think that he's right. Like, the NBA has become more and more about player movement. I think that's a good thing. It's something that, frankly, we've benefited from. But because it's become so rare for a player to spend that much time with one team, their entire career with one team, there is something that becomes a little bit more special about it. And I like that Klay is recognizing the opportunity that he's got there just to finish things out with the Warriors.
Yeah, and he called out Udonis Haslem with the Heat, who retired after last season, and how he never played anywhere else, and he's an absolute legend in Miami, even though half of his career he was very much a end of the bench kind of guy. There was a point where he was a major part of some very good Heat teams, so don't get me wrong on that. But there was a long chunk of his career where he was there, but he's a Miami institution. And Udonis Haslem, it even goes further. Other than the years he spent at the University of Florida and 1 year playing overseas after he came out of college, he was in Miami for his entire NBA career, entire high school career, everything. So he's an absolute legend in Miami. And that's kind of where Klay and Steph and Draymond, they're all headed that way in the Bay Area as well. And he talked about how Northern California is home for him and now. And like, that's the only place he ever wants to be and wants to play, and his connection with the fans and all that. And I think it's cool, man. I don't want to see him play anywhere else either. Like, I want to see him finish it out. Once we get past like the 10-year mark, it's like, let's just stay. Like, let's just keep going. I don't fault the guy if it's like, man, like Damian Lillard, like, I need to go win a title. But like, Klay's won titles. He's kind of, he's achieved just about everything, he could hope to achieve in his career. So yeah, let's finish it out strong with one franchise. That'd be a fun thing for us to go through at some point and just kind of go through who are some guys that we think could be wire to wire guys with one team. Because I bet the list is extremely small.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Final thing we've got for today. Shaden Sharp, Christian Brown have their options picked up by their respective teams, and the Nuggets and the Blazers. But so this is that time of year. These options get picked up. These guys know this is no surprise that these are picked up at all, but just this is the type of stuff that's coming out right now because teams are just kind of going through the motions, doing what they need to do, filling out that paperwork and getting it done.
Yeah, I've never fully understood the whole idea of waiting until the deadline on the ones that are no brainers. I mean, I guess there's the theory of, well, what if, what if the basket falls over on his head like D'Angelo in The Office, and he can't play anymore. Like maybe that's a theory there, but it's for the most part, like just get it done. Like I would be if I was like if I was ever lucky enough to work in an NBA front office, I'd be the one to be like, hey, we have 20 days to get that done. Hey, we have 19 days. Hey, we have 18 days. Like I'd be constantly reminding, because I'd be terrified like somebody's gonna
Anthony Carter.
Yeah, or they're gonna run out of gas on the way to to work and just forget to be like, hey, put in the paperwork to pick up those options. So the thing that usually catches my eye, Christian Brown's is a little bit different because I think that a lot of times there's not even a lot of reporting on these. It's just the team releases that they did it. What always catches my eye is if a team has 2, 3, or 4 of these, because sometimes they do. If they have a bunch and they don't do it as a batch. They don't say, or if they do have like 3 and they announce 2 of them and not the third one, that generally kind of raises my eyebrow to say, maybe they're not picking up the third guy. So every year there's a couple guys who don't have their options picked up. Kai Jones, had he not been waived, was probably headed in that direction.
Yeah.
So, but it's you're right. It's time of year for this stuff. We've got roughly 12 days for rookie scale extensions to get done and veteran extensions for guys with more than 1 year left on their contract. There's a little bit of play in that if it's a player option or team option for that second year, but it's anybody who's looking extension wise, that list gets cut drastically here within the next 12 days.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll be keeping an eye on that certainly as we get closer and closer there. Oh boy, this is a fun time of year. So much fun, so much going on. And man, I know we spend so much time just looking forward to basketball being back on the floor. Now I'm like looking forward to the regular season too, when the games are going to really count,
Well, Trevor, tonight the Celtics and 76ers are playing, and Jason Tatum's not playing, Jaylen Brown's not playing, Joel Embiid's not playing, James Harden's not playing. So I'm a little like, all right, I'm ready. Let's just skip 2 weeks to the regular season. I'm done with this. Like I'm already finished it. I want to see a handful of the guys I haven't seen yet get out on the floor and that. But that's the reality of how teams kind of treat the preseason now. They're not going to put guys at risk any more than they really have to. They're going to only put them out there for a little bit. And for the most part, most of the teams, even the best ones, they treat kind of that first month of the season through really the end of November as that's kind of our ramp up where we're going to figure a lot of stuff out on the fly in the regular season, because guys your teams and players, that they're not pushing to win 65, 70 games like that anymore. Now it's, if we can get in the high 40s, low 50s, maybe to the mid 50s, we're going to have a pretty good playoff seed and we'll feel pretty good about it.
Yep. Yeah, that's what we're going to see. And again, that requires reframing what a good team looks like in the NBA in terms of the wins and losses, because it's going to be different. It's going to be different now with more parity.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, make sure you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel, of course, over on the podcast side as well, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.